So, hello everyone. So today we have Alex Witherow. Hopefully I said that right. With us talking about car sharing. So Alex has quite a bit of experience with different platforms that we can ask about. So I guess we'll go ahead and just dive in. So first of all, thank you, Alex, for being here. And
Happy to
if
be
you
here.
Hey, awesome. If you could kind of just give us a little bit of background of, how long you've been doing car sharing and like how you got started.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So, so first of all, I started my YouTube channel, Car Rental University, about 7 or 8 months ago, 8 months ago now, and that's been growing very quickly, which I'm thrilled to see. A large reason I started the channel is because I felt that, in my first year of doing car sharing, I had a lot of issues. And I feel like everyone who's getting into the game now is in such a better place with this industry. When I first got into car shares, this was probably about 6 years ago. The There was like the Getaround was fairly non-existent. Really had very little presence throughout the United States. Turo was definitely ramping up. Turo had a larger presence on the West Coast because they're from the West Coast. And and I was in New York City at the time. And so when I lived in New York City, what basically got me into this whole thing was, I was walking through Long Island City one day, just east of Manhattan, and I saw this huge line going out the door of this place called Tower Rentals. And I remember talking to some of these guys. I was like, "Hey, what's going on here? Like, why are there so many people, lined up here?" And they all said, "Well, we're Uber drivers and we're trying to get cars to drive for in New York City." Now, in New York City, to drive Uber, it's not like pretty much everywhere else in the United States. You just all you need is a driver's license, car registration. You just plug it into the app, and then you turn on and go. Right. In New York City, it's very different. It's much more regulated. There's what's called the Taxi and Limousine Commission, the TLC. So in New York City, to drive for Uber, you need to have a TLC license and a TLC plated car. So what was happening is that a lot of these Uber drivers in New York City, they would pass. You had to do like a 30-hour course on driver safety, on all the laws in New York City. I think, and so basically once they got out of that, they then would get their TLC license after they passed the test, and then they needed to get a TLC plated car. And I remember asking, I was like, "Well, how much are you guys paying every week for a TLC plated car?" And they were paying anywhere from $400 to $500 a week for a car.
Wow.
And I'm thinking, $400 or $500 a week. um, so I in my head, in my mind, I was like, there is huge money in this. And I'm like, I see the line going down the block, and I'm like, holy crap! Like, this is a super underserved market. They don't have enough cars. They need more cars with TLC, plates and whatnot. So I was thinking to myself, all I need are like 5 cars, and I will make a lot of money and a living just off of having 5 cars. And I don't need to be a big player in this industry. I can just carve a few breadcrumbs off the table. So that was really how I got into it. And then I got connected with a few different guys. Now, all that to say, when I first started renting cars, I was sourcing drivers through Craigslist, like just through word of mouth, through other guys I knew who were driving taxis in New York City, or Uber cars. And I mean, I don't know. I mean, no offense to Craigslist, but I mean the clientele that I was finding on that site, I mean, they were basically criminals.
Mhm.
And then after that, I found Hyrecar, and Hyrecar was a little better, but not a lot better. And anyone who has spent a little time in the car share space knows about Hyrecar. Hyrecar's been around a while. They've obviously had a lot of problems. They were actually sued last year in New York City because in New York City, you cannot bring your own insurance to a car share platform. If you are going to car share in New York City, it has to have a TLC plate and it has to be commercially insured through their sanctioned commercial, vendors. And so Hyrecar tried to circumvent that commercial insurance system, and they got like sued to an oblivion. And I don't know if you've watched their stock price, but their stock price went from like 35 down to $1 by the end of last year. So that's the main reason why Hyrecar has crashed so badly, is because of that lawsuit in New York City. But so I started out with, I started out with a Toyota Highlander. I then I got a Nissan Maxima after that. I got 2 Honda Accords after that, and also a Toyota Camry. So I got up to about 5 cars at one point. So basically I just had renters from Hyrecar but I had them all on basically private agreements with me. And what I was doing was I decided I didn't want to deal with, I had some cars TLC plated, but I preferred to not. I basically moved my whole operation just to the other side of the Hudson River, and I went to Jersey City. And so I basically based my whole business out of Jersey City, where Jersey laws applied, and I didn't have to deal with the monopoly that was the laws of New York City. Because it's just much more tricky to deal with everything in New York. So, but that said, a large reason I started my channels is I had a lot. There's so many unforeseen issues. There's speed camera tickets, tolls. How do you deal with those things? How do you deal with the Port Authority giving you crap about where you park your car? I mean, up in New York City, this was very challenging. Now, pretty much every other market in the United States, it's much easier to run a car share business than New York City. New York City is super regulated, lots of police presence. It's very challenging, but that's, I really learned at School of Hard Knocks, and basically every piece of wisdom that I have to impart onto my coaching clients and whatnot, I've had to learn the hard way. I mean, it's unfortunately, but I paid the price for that the hard way. But now I have a very fast growing YouTube channel because I've been in the trenches of it all.
Nice. Yeah, I noticed you have a lot of different topics, and what's cool with YouTube is it's a search engine, so people can literally just search your channel or YouTube, to find their answer, which is awesome for car sharing because things come up. Super helpful. How many cars do you have right now?
So I was up to 5 at one point. I had 3 crashed in the last 6 months, which has been a bummer. Wow. 2 were totaled. Actually, 3 were totaled, and then so I'm down to 2 right now. I'm about to get back up to 3, so I'm about to grab another one soon. So my intention was never to grow to 15 or 20 cars. I ideally would like to be around the 5 to 7 standpoint. I just don't want it to overtake my life, because I have a lot of different projects going on.
Yeah, that's something to consider for sure. It's not on the list that I gave you, but it's kind of a hot topic, as well as like with car prices. It seems like those are going to be going down soon. Are you kind of waiting for car prices to go down to buy another one? Or?
I think it will. I think the prices will drop soon. We're starting to see this a little with gas. Gas is coming down a little. Basically, just people aren't. They're just staying home. I mean, they're just not going out because it's too expensive to drive. Especially if you're in a place like California, where the price of gallon right now is $6 or $7, maybe a little more. I'm based in Atlanta, Georgia. Georgia probably has some of the cheapest gas in the country right now, because we dropped our state gas tax, so we're down to probably about $3.85 right now. But I do expect to see car prices start to drop. I mean, a large reason of why they've been so expensive is because there's a big supply issue. A lot of cars are getting stuck out in the ocean on cargo ships, just along with a lot of other goods and services. We've had a semiconductor shortage as well. So there are, 98% of pretty much all the semiconductors on the planet are made in Taiwan. And so because of COVID, there's been a lot of different regulatory things that have been increased and put on ports when they are shipping things. And so they have to be more careful, which is slowing down the process. And so, obviously right now, a used car that you've had for 5 years with $60,000 or $70,000 or 60 or 70,000 miles on it is probably going for not much less than what you originally paid for it, which is kind of wild. So it's a great time to sell a car, but I would recommend anyone who is in the game right now as a car share entrepreneur. It's a great time to overturn your cars. If you have cars that have high mileage right now, it's a great time to swap it out.
Yeah, that's a good tip.
Yep.
Do you have a niche of cars you prefer to buy or rent?
So that's an interesting question. I get that question a lot on my channel. There's a lot of different strategies and ways you can take the car share game. And I would say there's no right or wrong way to do it. For my taste, I like getting base level mid-size sedans, Honda Accords, Toyota Camrys. I think that the reason why I like them is that they do, first of all, I like to lead with Getaround. So Getaround is my favorite platform. I love how hands-off it is. I know there's other people out there that don't like how hands-off it is. That this is just a matter of preference. Turo operates more like Airbnb does. And so if you're used to that ability to tinker and change pricing and more settings, you will prefer Turo. Now, that said, on Getaround doesn't do luxury vehicles. So they made a business decision, probably 4 or 5 years ago, where they said, we're not going to do high liability cars and we're just going to do base level sedans. So the Camrys, the Sonatas, the Honda Accords, all that stuff does really well on Getaround. Now, that said, that stuff can do pretty well on Turo too, in my experience. But Turo is definitely more geared towards higher end cars. Even in the way they market themselves, they say that we are providing you a vehicular experience. So that's I think that's so I've always heard that I don't personally have any Teslas or BMWs to rent, but I've heard Teslas and BMWs and Jeep Wranglers and Mercedes and all those higher end cars do very well on Turo. So especially like if you're in like a San Francisco, LA, Miami, South Beach market, especially like Teslas, stuff like that, those are really hot cars in those markets. But for my taste, I like mid-size, sedans, cars sitting around the $25,000 range. I know some people out there, they go and buy just, a $5,000 car for cash, and just run it till it's death and just milk it for any kind of mileage that they can, or any kind of revenue they can get off of it. That works too. I think that a lot depends on your own financial situation, your credit, how much, car debt you're comfortable with or not. I personally don't like to do more than 1 or 2 loans at a time. And then try to just buy everything else with cash. I mean, buying a car with cash is ideal. So,
yeah, that's a good tip. I think too, like with sedans, it's a broader range of people that need it too. That you can, people with families, and I heard too that you definitely want like an automatic and not a stick shift too, just to.
Oh yeah. I mean,
that kind of thing
I love stick shifts. Like if I was going to rent like a Porsche on Turo, I would require it to be a stick shift. But most people these days don't really know how to drive stick shifts. And honestly, I was looking at buying a Jeep Wrangler for myself like 2 years ago, and even Jeep, which you would think is like the quintessential, standard transmission type car, would be perfect. They barely even make stick shifts for Jeeps anymore, which to me is really sad. It's kind of slowly being phased out with all cars.
Yeah, that makes sense. So what do you think about like living near the airport doing car sharing versus like living in the suburbs? And like what platform's better for which?
Yeah, so obviously being near the airport is helpful. I in Atlanta, I live about 15 minutes from the airport. I wouldn't say that's like right by the airport, but it's if you're, I have one of my coaching clients is based right by in College Park, right by the airport, and College Park has a lot of airline pilots living there. Lots. Delta's hub is obviously in Atlanta, so we have a lot of Delta people in that area. And I would say, I haven't. I think that it should do it should do decently. With Getaround, what's nice about it, what I like about Getaround is they give you an account rep or account manager when you sign on with them. And typically, a lot of what I do is I typically am helping my coaching clients get connected with their account rep, because at Getaround, the account rep has all the data on which zip codes are doing best in terms of demand, and so they can really see how much supply there is, how much demand there is, and what is needed in terms of, do we need more cars here or not. So they're very good about getting new customers to put cars in strategic places where it's going to do well for them and for you. I love that. So, for a while I had, I live in just off of downtown to the east in Atlanta. And, in my area, originally I had 4 cars in my garage. And some of them were like 2 of them were doing really well. The Honda Accords obviously really well, but the Maximo was struggling a little. So was the Highlander. And I talked to them and they were like, you got to move the Maxima up north 15 minutes and you got to move the Highlander over here. And, because they said that area is just too saturated right now. So I don't even, in terms of whether to put it at an airport or the suburbs or whatever, I don't even think about that, especially with Getaround. I'm just listening to what the data, the account rep has and where they think is best to put it. It changes all the time, so it's different. Now, if you're with Turo, I do know that Turo has kind of like a power host hotline. I'm not a huge Turo. I'm not a huge Turo user. I've done probably about 50 or 60 rides over the last like 2 years with Turo, so I use it on occasion. I'm not sure if they have a similar kind of thing. I think with Turo, you really have the ability to kind of just play it by ear and adjust pricing on your end. Whereas, Getaround does not allow you to adjust pricing. Their algorithm automatically does it. So, I kind of hear complaints about that from Turo users. Turo, usually people, if you start with Turo, you probably won't like Getaround because you don't like how hands-off it is. And if you're someone like me who started with Getaround, I love how hands-off it is. So to me, Turo, I find to be a little too involved.
Yeah, I love that Getaround's helping you know where to put your cars too. Like that's
Right.
kind of invaluable.
Yeah, it's awesome. I love it.
I mean, they want to make money too, so it also helps them. But
and they literally will walk everyone by the hand to tell you where to put the car.
Yeah. So then it doesn't really matter. If you're by the airport or not, people always need a car.
You're not shooting in the dark, which is nice.
Yeah. So if you were starting over today, what 3 tips would you give yourself that you wish you would have known getting into the car sharing space?
Yeah, I would have just done way more research. I unfortunately, I've been kind of a serial entrepreneur through my life, and when I get a new idea, I get very excited about it. I want to just dive right in. I'm very good at making adjustments on the fly. The problem with that is that I dove in on car rentals, and I found all kinds of problems. With things that can go wrong. So, if I were to do it again, I would really do a lot of research. And really get a good understanding of, okay, here are all the car share platforms. If you're going to do this one, here's what you need to do. If you're going to do this one, here's the way to do it. If you're going to do this one, here's the way to do it. And so that's really what I would do is just try to get a good feel for everything. And like we talked about earlier, there's no one right way to do it. and I ran my rentals up in New York City initially, but I moved all my cars down to Atlanta, and being in a different city, even I was like, whoa, there's a little different dynamic here. Because the difference was that in New York City, I used to kind of make my bread and butter renting to Uber drivers, because in New York City, it's such a condensed area that they're basically just running up and down Manhattan, and so that's not a lot of mileage. And so even my renters who were renting the car and driving regularly, I mean, they were only putting on like 25 to 30,000 miles a year, which for an Uber driver is not that much. And yet they were still making the money that they needed to make. Now, when I came down to Atlanta, I had some Uber drivers putting on 10,000 miles a month. And I was like, wait a minute, I can't let this go on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, no, bring the car back. I was like, you can't drive that much. So if you're having a driver drive 8 to 10,000 miles a month, I mean, that car's gonna be done in no time. So and that's what I like about Turo and Getaround drivers and users, is that they are, they're the bang for your buck in terms of mileage and revenue is very good.
Awesome. So yeah, definitely like doing your research before. Sometimes I know is like
definitely do the research. Don't I would say stay, don't touch Hyrecar. I always, I get a lot of questions about Hyrecar. And listen, I am a battle veteran of Hyrecar, and I could list off their claims people by name. I know them that well. I just, from what I've seen of Hyrecar, especially in the last year, they are a sinking ship. They are in trouble, and they are trying to salvage as much revenue and profit as possible by shorting you, the host, on insurance claims and payouts. And that happened to me 6 months ago because I used them briefly, and they shorted me out of $2,000. So I really wouldn't touch them. I think especially now that we have Getaround that's really ramping up, rolling out. Getaround has over $1 billion in their war chest of company cash. So this is a highly well-funded company by venture capitalists. Turo is obviously a known quantity. Turo is the 800-pound gorilla in the industry. I think that Getaround at this point has probably only got about 10 or 15% of market share, and Turo has a large chunk, but I think that Getaround is quickly and rapidly approaching. And in my opinion, I think they'll probably pass them up eventually.
Yeah, I've been really impressed with Getaround's, like how much they're trying to get new hosts.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, they're giving massive incentives. I mean, there was the $1,200 bonus for new cars. They're giving guaranteed earnings throughout the summer of 800 to 1,000. I mean, they're just throwing money at people to get on there.
Yeah, I think now's the time to try Getaround if it's possible. But yeah, I think they actually changed it to where they're offering the 1,200 through August now. Like it expires, and then So
they probably
look into that.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. I'd have to check with my account rep, but yeah, I'm sure that wouldn't surprise me if they're doing that.
Cool. And then you have a link too that people can use if they want to sign up.
So
Getaround.
Yeah. So my, the link for Getaround set up through me. If you use that link, I can help you get set up with all your people and your account reps. On my channel right now, I'm offering free 30-minute consultations. Basically, I just want to. My main reason for doing that is not only to help people get set up with the car share platforms, but I really just want to hear what everyone's problems are. It's been awesome, honestly. I've been doing it for about 2 or 3 weeks now. I've met some fantastic people who are just trying to make some extra money, and some of them have been just starting out. People maybe like what your audience is like, just have never heard much about this, and they're just getting started. They have 1 or 2 cars they want to put out there. And then I also have, I just the other day spoke to the largest Turo fleet owner in Cleveland.
Wow.
So, we're going to start working together as well. So there's a lot of people out there that are making very good money from this.
Nice. Was yeah, people, I mean, not always, but most people do need transportation. They need to,
Yeah.
get around. So I think that this is a really great industry that's not going
Yeah,
anywhere.
and what's nice, especially if you're in a city, and because I kind of live like this, I don't normally have a car for myself that often. So I kind of, I'm about to have three cars, and so two of them which I always rent all the time, and then one I just keep for. I mean, I work from home, so one I keep for myself, and if I need to like run an errand or go on a trip, I'll just block off the calendar when I'm not using it. But the rest of the time, I rent it out. So it's kind of a nice way. And even if you don't have a car in a city, you can really, book out a car on Getaround for a couple of hours. If you're a host, they give you a discount. So
Oh, nice.
it's a pretty cool solution, especially in city living.
Nice. Yeah, you might as well be making money when you're not driving.
Exactly. Exactly.
Awesome. So what are the best places for people to get in touch with you?
Really through my channel. If they come over to Car Rental University, if you just, you can click on the main intro video, has my video about free consultations. If any of your audience wants to set up a time to speak with me about getting set up, there's, I have my Getaround referral link, and I also have my calendar in there. So you can book some time on my calendar, and I'm happy to chat with anyone.
All right, awesome. Yeah, I'll definitely put in the description the link to your YouTube channel and the Getaround link as well. So if anybody's
Yep,
interested, be sure to check those out. All
definitely.
right. Well, I think, is there anything else you wanted to cover before we wrap things up?
No, thanks for having me, and I hope this is useful for your audience. I think for people who are whether trying to build a fleet or a side hustle, I think it's just a great option. And like I said, it's in such better condition now than it was 6 years ago. Another thing is that insurance has caught up to this industry. So 6 years ago, there was no insurance product for when your car was just sitting in the garage in between rentals. Now we have period X insurance. So a lot of times people think that they have to buy a personal plan like through Geico or whatever, or a policy, and you really don't. So that's a conversation I have a lot, is because people don't know how to configure their insurance in the most optimal way, and they end up paying 2 or 3 times more than what they should be paying.
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't even know
Mhm.
about that.
Oh, there's all kinds of nooks and crannies in this business.
Wow. All right. Awesome. All right. Well,
Yeah,
thanks, Alex, for being on the channel.
no problem.
Um,
Thanks for having me.
yeah. All right. Awesome.